We run these uncut, and the idea is just really to have a conversation. It's pretty low-key.
Do you want to ask the questions? And is there no chance my daughter could, she can sit in, or
if you like?
She helps me. Jane, can you? You said if I like. She's the lady that started all this.
Whatever you think works okay with me.
Jane, please.
Okay.
The story starts with your daughter, you felt?
No, my own story actually does start with her. Once I told her the story, because I kept it secret for so long. You know, do you know the story yourself?
I do. I've seen the movie a few times.
And then once it came out, it was over to Jane, because I don't do the internet. So she took it over from there. For the last 10 years, she's really worked on it. So that's why I say she can come in if she wants to come in. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, I think you can start at the beginning. You can start when you were 6.
When I was 6,
yeah.
Right. Do you want me to start? You said I can. So she said, no, keep it short and keep it, don't So.
Well, let's assume people who are watching this have seen the story, kind of have an idea of the story. What is it that inspired you to actually tell your daughter after all those years?
It was actually, I used to go home every year, back to Ireland every year for holidays, and when I was younger and had Anthony at the time, my young brother, he was 18 months older than me, and he was the only one that knew the two of us. And over the years, he used to say, I wonder what happened to where he is, where is he gone? Is he in Vietnam? And then he said to me, went home in 2001, I think it was, will you for goodness sake go back home and tell your daughter and your son? Because I kept it so embedded in here for years and years and years. And when I went back and told her, of course, straight away, she said she had an inkling. She'd seen some little photographs and things. So that's where it all started, really.
Had you told your husband?
Jane's dad I had, but he's dead. He died
But had
this
you
year.
told him before he passed?
Oh, I told him when I first met, before I married him. He was the only one that knew. I told before I married him, because I thought if he doesn't want to marry, well then he knows. And all he said, he never mentioned it. The past is past, that's it, full stop. That was Jane's dad.
And you decided that it would be best for the family to just not have it be part of your family life?
It wasn't even that as much, because when Anthony was born, I was in the convent having him. We were so indoctrinated. It was such an awful, mortal sin, the Catholic religion. You had to repent every day, all the times you were there, you had to repent because you committed such an awful sin of having a baby out of wedlock. Okay? So that started. The whole story started when when I was 6 years old. My mother died in Ireland, which left my father, she was only 36, my father was 36. There were 6 of us. There was 3 boys and 3 girls. So Dad couldn't cope with all of us. So he put the 3 girls into a convent school in Limerick. So from 6 till 18, that's where I stayed. And it was nuns from that time onwards, continually. Very good nuns, some of them, so they gave us a very good academic education, music and all sorts of English, Irish and all maths and what have you. But as regards social facts of life, you were never told anything about it. So.
And it would seem from the movie, at least, that you've kept your faith through all of this. No,
I lost it after Anthony was taken away, when Anthony was adopted. I lost it because it was kind of so sudden. I had to work there. He was born in the home, when I went to the home. And you know how I became pregnant, don't you? Yeah. Anyway.
At least Stephen Frear's version of it.
Eh?
At least Stephen Frear's version of it.
Oh, God. Oh, dear. Yeah.
You look beautiful.
Oh, yeah. And as I say, I became pregnant, and as I went out one night to a carnival and met this nice boy. I had a romantic evening, and full stop. Didn't know what it was all about, of course. You didn't in those days. I mean, it's going back in the 50s. And nuns, there was no way you'd ever speak about sex. We didn't know the first thing about sex. So I had a romantic evening with the boy, and then we arranged to meet the following week. And I was living with my aunt. She'd taken me out of the school at 18. I was 18 at this stage, and she had taken me to the carnival that night, and then I came back, and the following week I said, well, I'm going back to meet John. We arranged to meet him the following week. A nice young man he was. And she said, oh no, you're not leaving this house. She said she wouldn't. And of course, in those days you obeyed your elders, and that was it. You couldn't do any more, you know. So you're not leaving the house, she said. And I said, but I'd promised I'd meet this John. No, you're not, she said, and she locked me in. She wouldn't let me out and gave me across the face. Anyway, so I never saw him again. Never saw him again. And so I had made love that night, and over the months I hadn't realised what I'd done, to be quite honest. That's, you know. And then she noticed I was getting big, and she said, oh my God, are you pregnant? Shall I say? I didn't know what pregnant meant. You know, in those days you didn't. So, oh my God, she said, have you been with the boy? I said, yeah. I met him at the carnival, but I said, you wouldn't let me out to see him. She nearly went crazy. So she got me to see the doctor and went into this home in Rossgrey in Tipperary. And that's where it all started, you know. Anthony had a bad time having him at the time. And then you were 8 weeks in the nursing part of it, and then you had to go over to the main building. And then you got your, we all got different duties. I got the job working in the laundry for 3.5 years. And it wasn't the Magdalene laundries, nothing to do with the Magdalene laundries. It was just, we were classed as Magdalene's girls because after St. Mary Magdalene, who was a sinner, so we were the Magdalene girls. But in actual fact, we did laundry just for the home and for the nuns and the babies and ourselves. But the Magdalenes are a different story. People are beginning to get them mixed up, I think. Yeah. But they weren't, we had nothing to do with the Magdalenes. They were different, completely different order altogether.
And you were of age at that point. You were 18.
I was 18 when I left the school. 18.
And so you had the child after you were 18.
Yeah.
But you ended up still caught up in all of this. You didn't have any.
Because my father. I mean, those days you couldn't dare have a baby because the shame was absolutely awful. I mean, you'd have to live through it to understand what it was like. Okay, so and my father disowned me, of course, and it was only this one other brother that was 18 months older than me that we kept in touch all the years. And there was no way I could bring I used to ask them, can you find me a place where I can bring the baby and work with him, take him with me? Oh, no, he's got to stay here till he's adopted. This was the nun's attitude, you see. So I worked there for 3.5 years in the laundry. And every evening we could go and play with your baby and nurse them and cuddle them and love them, you know. So, and that's life went on for the 3.5 years.
So your child was 3 years old when?
3.5 he was. Yeah, he was 3.5 years of age.
So he's a personality and a.
He was the loveliest tall boy, good-looking, dark, lovely child, and I used to cuddle and sing little Irish songs to him and all sorts of things and teach him little rhymes and what have you. And then it happened that I'd signed him. And there was a lady looking for a little girl. The mother that adopted him, you know, she was looking for a little girl. She didn't want a boy because she'd already 3 boys of her own, and her husband was a doctor. They lived in Missouri, so she came over to Rossgrey in Tipperary to have a look around, and she picked out Mary. But it so happened that Anthony, my son, was always with Mary. He used to look after her and take her everywhere. Mary was 3, and he was 3.5, but he was always quite a tall little fella. And they were very loving together, the two of them, you know, the two of them. And anyway, the mother came to pick Mary up one evening, and Anthony wouldn't let her. He went up and he kissed the mother, you know, sort of didn't know what was happening. Mary was going. And of course she took one look at him, the mother, bless her, and she said, oh, I just can't part them. You know, she didn't want a boy, neither did her husband want a boy. And the 3 grown-ups, well, bigger sons of their own. Anyway, she had to phone her husband. She said, I can't go and leave him. And she took Mary, but she said, I have to phone my husband in Missouri. So I said, oh, bring them along. Bring a half a dozen if you like, he said. So anyway, Auntie was went very quickly then. I've never had time to say goodbye, well, you know, so.
So how soon after Anthony was taken did you leave the church, or leave the convent?
Well, after Anthony left, he left 1 week before Christmas. I was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken, and I cried and made a nuisance of myself, really, because the nuns, and I wanted him back, and of course I couldn't have him back because I'd signed him away in the June as he went away in the December. And they said, no, you can't have him back because I said, I know I can't, but I said I didn't want him to go either, you know, because he went so suddenly, I think, you know. If I was prepared, I would have been okay. I wouldn't have been okay,
really?
But you know what I mean. It's sort of, I'd have been more resigned to it. But anyway, I cried and cried and cried and nearly went crazy and nearly drove the nuns mad because they said, oh, will you stop your nonsense and just get on with, you know, get on with it. But within a fortnight they had me out of the home and back over in England in a boys' school for boys 2 weeks later. So it was in the beginning of January '56 I ended up, and that's when I started another life again then. Anthony had gone and I was just heartbroken, and over the kind of, as those 2 years, I stayed in that boys' school for 2 years. I thought, I'm not a Catholic anymore. I just, you know, I was so heartbroken he was gone, and I stopped going to confession, stopped going to communion, because you see, I mean, all your life, from 6 to 18, you believed everything you were told. I mean, you didn't query what nuns told you. As I say, you just believed everything. So anyway, as I started to disbelieve within here, you know, and I thought, why have they taken, why is he gone, but what's it all about, you know? So I worked there for 2 years in a boys' school, and then I decided I must make a career for myself, you know, at this stage, because I mean, I must have been about 23 then, I think. So I moved down to Hertfordshire in England, you know, a beautiful town called St. Albans, and there I stayed. And then I started training as a nurse, and I worked in the psychiatric hospital for 30 years, psychiatric hospital.
How long before you met your husband?
He was a male nurse as well. I met him, I worked in the, I met him when I moved down to the hospital. I think it was about a year, 2 years, I think, yeah. Anyway, we got married, and I started working in the psychiatric hospital, and saw awful conditions, you know. I mean, it was, I loved every minute of it, don't get me wrong, I did like it, but such tragic cases, you know, psychiatry, all sorts of different sort of depressions, schizophrenics, all sorts. So gradually over the years, I mean, it took me a long time because I worked at the hospital for 30 years, I gradually tried to put my own sorrow behind to try and help the people I was nursing, you know. So that gradually but I never, ever, ever forgot Anthony, never. My one dream was to find him.
You also had kids.
Eh?
You also had kids.
Oh, I had kids, you see. I had kids, but I hadn't told them, you see.
But I mean, they needed your...
Oh, I did attend, didn't I? Yeah. Oh, I did. I was a loving mother to them. Don't get me wrong.
Did it feel like you were...
I love them. I love them to bits, really.
Did it feel like a break from the sorrow you were carrying around for so long when you?
Well, I did when I had them. I've got a son who's older than my daughter Jane. He's now 52, 53. Yeah, and my daughter is 2 years younger. And so, I mean, I love them. So I worked hard all through the years and loved them, and I still do to this day. But I never in my heart forgot Anthony. Never, ever. And I thought, please God, one day I'll find him. But I came very bitter against the Catholic Church because of it, you know. But then after, as I say, working a good many years and seeing other sorrows, other people's sorrows, I sort of, well, it could have been, I put them to the back and started helping other people, and that's how it worked out like that. So
how soon after you found out did you find Mr. Sixsmith?
About 18 months. I was trying for about 18 months to try and find Anthony.
Actively trying to...
Oh, actively, yeah.
On her own?
The day she told me, I was straight on the internet. And I didn't realise that in England or in the UK, at the age of 18, if you're adopted, you have a right to go and trace if you want to. And I didn't realise that Ireland was different, had different laws, still has different laws today. You can't, there's no information available. So that's why it was so difficult to try and find him. and I kind of just went through the entire process. I found a website that was basically to do with people that were adopted from Ireland, and actually a lot, it was started by somebody here in America that was also adopted here when she was 2 years old from a similar institution. And I just followed, they'd kind of written a process, so I followed their process, and I wrote to all the government bodies in Ireland, and they just kept forwarding me on to another one and another one. And eventually they sent me back to the first one that I'd written to. So the film and the book are different from the reality of what happened. After 18 months, we were left with just one person to write to, which was Sister Sato in Cork.
That's right.
There was never very good reports about this particular nun from people that were on the adoption website, but eventually I wrote all the letters on Mum's behalf. I kind of made out I was her. And so I wrote to Sister Sato, and then she sent us a letter, didn't she, saying that she had some information to share with us, and could we contact her. So you duly telephoned, didn't you?
I did.
And tell them what happened.
And she said, oh yes, I've got information. After all the years, I thought, oh my God, I found him. Okay. But I'm very sorry to tell you, she said, he's dead. And I thought, oh my God.
So just told over the telephone.
She just told me over the telephone, just like that. And I said, oh my God, what did he die of? And somehow, I had this feeling that he was gay. Not that he died of AIDS, but he was gay. But of course, working in psychiatric nursing, I'd worked with a lot of male nurses were gay. So I mean, I loved them all because they were very nice to us young ladies at the time, you know. They were very good. So that the part wasn't, but it was the fact that I hadn't known he'd died, and he'd been back over looking for me.
Well, she did tell us that he'd died, and she told us that there was a plaque to him at Seanmoss Abbey. She didn't tell us that he was actually buried there, or his ashes were buried there. And kind of, that was a very upsetting evening, wasn't it?
Goodness, it was. So we went back up.
So you went home, and I remember I went onto the website again because I remembered.
I was desperate.
I remember somebody had been to Seanmoss Abbey and taken photographs of the place, of the buildings, and then I remembered the one of this headstone, which obviously turns out to be Anthony or Michael's headstone. And when I looked at it, I realised it must be him because of the date of birth. And on the headstone it said that he died in Washington, so that's how I managed to, obviously, went onto the internet and I found his obituary, which of course said that he'd worked for the Republican Party. And that's kind of where Martin comes into it, because he used to be a political journalist for the BBC, based in Washington, and a mutual friend did know him, and she told him the story. So then we got in touch, and he took it up from there. He actually traced the American side of things very quickly, within about a week.
So was there any road trip with the two of them?
No, but we did all go to Ireland together. We went with Martin and his wife to Ireland.
We did several times, and we found the grave. And
yes, but they didn't actually come to America together. Martin came on his own.
So what's it like to have your true story, it's obviously very personal to you, fictionalized to such a degree? Things are changed, obviously. I mean, is it, are you just hoping they have the spirit of it and that's okay? Or
the sequence of events are different, but there are so many scenes and conversations in the film that are real.
They are real.
Very
definitely real. Yeah.
Just the way that that Mum found out that Anthony had died is kind of different. I mean, that really is for dramatic effect, you know, I think, or to keep it condensed into 90 minutes of a film. But no, the general bones of the story is very true.
But it sounds like you should be the third banana. You should be in the car with them, or guiding the way. Yes, I know, but it's just, it was easier, wasn't it, to make the film the way they've done it with this road trip that they have, and it's because it's about their two characters, you know. So how was it for something that was so personal to become so public?
At first, when the book came out, I didn't even know. We didn't even know. All I wanted to do was to find him. Never knew it was ever going to be a book, let alone a film. We never dreamed, you know, all the years I kept it. And then Martin, I said, no, I don't want it published. You know, I don't want, Martin, don't do it. Then I changed my mind, because I thought to myself, there's so much of this going on, and especially in Ireland, and at the moment this film has brought it up to the fore, you know. The hundreds are looking for their families, and they're not told they won't be told anything, and they're getting desperate, a lot of them, you know. And I thought, right, I'll let it be published. Then the book came out in 2009, and then I found it, I didn't know anything about the book. Was the beginning and the end was made, but I had never known anything about Anthony's life. So that's when I found out his life, and he had a good life, really, a good education, and ended up in the White House working for the Bushes.
So you learned about his life ultimately by reading the book?
Martin had found it out for us, because he had worked at the White House, you see.
Martin gave us the information all along the way.
He talked to you about it? Through
Oh yes, we're in touch with Martin all the time. It
wasn't a page-turner. You were surprised by every revelation in it. You were
again, as I said to you earlier, some of the things in the book aren't exactly the way it happened either. So some things were a little surprising, yes.
Yeah.
And did you have you felt the situation of being famous? Have you felt the people being aware of who you were all of a sudden?
All of a sudden, since I came over here last Saturday, I am still. It's unreal. It's just unreal. I can't believe it, you know.
So it hasn't been like this at home?
No, I lead a very quiet, sedentary life at home. I've got a lovely family. I lead quiet. I'm 80 years of age, for goodness sake, you know. So, and I love my quiet life at home, but it's just bounced. And even at home, it's bounced, you know, so.
But not badly so.
Most no, not really, because I've lots of friends.
Just want to talk to you about it.
Eh?
They just want to talk to you about it.
They do, yes, yeah.
So when did you first notice that you might actually there might be a movie made out of this story?
You said that?
Steve contacted Martin after reading an article that was published in a newspaper, and there was a photograph of Mum and Martin, and he was just intrigued by the photo and the story. He was very touched by the story, so he wanted to buy the film rights. So contacted Martin pretty quickly after that. 2009 the book came out. I can't remember what month, but it was shortly after that we heard September, Steve wanted to make a movie.
So did you even know Steve Coogan's work?
Pardon?
Did you know Steve Coogan's work when you heard his name?
Well, I kind of know him, but I'm into the old. I love comedy. I do like comedy, but the old-fashioned comedy. Not Steve's comedy, but we met him in Martin's house when he first decided that he wanted to find out if he could make a film screen of it. And for 5 hours we met him, and I thought he was a wonderful gentleman, Steve. Absolutely wonderful, really was. Perfect gentleman, and all the story came out again, and because Anthony's partner had brought over some cine film of Anthony when he was younger, and we saw that day, didn't we? And do you remember, with Martin in Martin's house? So then he said he was thinking he was going to make a film of it, but never thought any more about it until it started this time last year. The film started, I think, in October, was it? And but they had, we had loads of warning, and they kept us in, and they kept everything we told. They took everything we told them on board, didn't they? Stephen and Jeff Pope was the producer, and of course our lady over there. And so everything we told them, they just, and you know, they kept us informed the whole way through. You know what was going on, and they had us down on the set at times. You know. Quite distressful sometimes, some of the sets, but at least it was good to get down and see, you know, how it's. But I don't think I'd really want the life after it's all over, you know, because I'm quite happily settled at home with my family and children and grandchildren and then great-grandchildren. So
distressing because they were familiar from your past, or distressing just because watching a set operate is
it's because of the past. It was the film. They were making the film of Anthony's, of my life, you know, and Anthony, the film where he was, I mean, the laundry scene was bad, and my friend's little girl was taken away at the same time. And then there was the scene where he was driving off in the car, which is a scene I've never forgotten. And the nice nun that looked after us there, you know, I used to sing in the choir, but they had a good voice then. She said, "Come quick," she said, "because your son is going away." So we ran up the stairs. I mean, that's true. And all I could see was this little face, a big black car, and his face looking out the window. And he was, you know, I suppose wondering where I was, you know. That's how it went, really, you know. So, and I've never forgotten that either. And they brought it, Gabby and Steve, they brought it to the fore, you know, really, really, really. And I feel so happy about it now, you know. We didn't know what to think of it at first when it was first seen, did we?
No.
We just, because we were so involved, we just couldn't, you know, I don't know. We had to hear what other people thought about it first, I think, you know. And I couldn't, when seeing Judi playing my part at the time, I didn't kind of realise it was me. I just kept thinking it was Judi Dench, you know. So that was it. But then after about the third time, I thought it sunk in, you know, and quite happy with the film, really, you know, as I say.
And did you know Steve's work before?
I did, yes.
Oh, Jane did,
Yes,
yeah. And my son was very...
Alan Partridge was more a part of your life.
Oh.
Much more so, yeah.
It's more for the younger people,
It's probably
I
a
think.
So have you
generation
tried to
thing.
watch Alan Partridge since all
I have, of course I have, yeah.
Not your cup of tea.
Yeah, I've watched him, you know.
Is it your cup of tea?
Oh, my cup of tea. I prefer the older type comedy,
Yeah.
you know, the black and white movies and all that sort of thing, the older comedy. But there again,
you
I
been
watched
served?
him. It was not quite my cup of tea, you know, but it's for the younger people, you know.
Well, it's interesting because it's so different for him as well.
I
You
know.
know, this is not the kind of film you would expect from Steve Coogan, but it's lovely.
It's fantastic. I think it's really fantastic, and he's really, and Gabby, they've all really done such a wonderful job on it. You know, worked hard, and as I said, took everything on board that we told them. Oh, you know, visited as much as they could. You know.
And did you spend much time with Mr. Frears or
Mr.
Stephen Frears?
Not particularly. I only saw him the 3 times we went down on the sets. I don't know him really well. You know, just.
He's
The
almost
last
your
scene
age.
where Anthony the last scene where she's screaming, he's gone. You know, she's rattling the gate, and we went down for that, didn't we? And what did he say? What are you doing down here? He said to me.
He said you were mad being on set that day.
You were
because it
mad
was
being on
an
set, he
emotional
said,
day.
because it was such an emotional day, you know. But that was his way of putting it.
And when's the first time you saw the completed film?
When was it, Jane?
Can't remember.
When was
Maybe.
it?
Yeah, maybe 3 months ago.
3 or 4 months ago, I think. Yeah.
So was that as hard as being on the set, or was reliving everything, or
Not really.
was it more like watching a movie?
It was quite stressful watching it the first time because we
very
didn't know
first
what
time.
to expect and how they were going to portray Mum's character or how it was all put together. And it did actually take a few days, probably 3 or 4 days, to actually step back and think, oh, actually it's okay. Because at first we didn't know what to think.
Bit of a simpleton is really in the film, you know, but I accept all that, you know, the funny parts of it all. Really. I'm not really a simpleton, you know, but there again, you have to have laughter with tears, don't you?
Yeah.
And they're quite funny pieces, funny things in it. So
you're smarter than the movie Philomena, but you're as plucky?
Yes.
Smarter than the movie, am I?
Yes.
I am.
But you're feisty as well, like Judi would be.
Yes, yeah, I am. Yes, so I'm the old school. I'm an old school girl, you know.
And does the success of the movie or the attention being paid to the movie affect you much, or are you, once you're done doing press and talking to everybody, is it just kind of
Not
go back
particularly.
home?
I go back home because I've got my present husband. He's registered blind, so I look after him quite a bit, and I go back to being normal again, washing the dishes and washing the floor, and you know, he's a lovely man. I've got a very good husband. He can see a little bit and he can read. He's got a big reading machine. He can do that. So I'm there to do things. And he said he does miss me. He said, "You're my eyes." So I'm away for a way. I rang him up the other day. It's quiet. I said, "Well, your eardrums have got to rest," because he can't see very well, but he's very sensitive with hearing, you know. So at least you get. I said, for a week, you'll get your eardrums have a rest.
So is telling the story, is having the story kind of be so told by someone in different ways, but really expressed, a relief of any kind in the overall history?
Yes, I think so. I think so. Well, it was a relief when I first told Jane about it all, anyway, because having it buried in with my heart all those years, and I'm wanting to tell Kevin as well over the years, and somehow not being able to do it. And that was really the first release anyway, when I was able to tell her, because after that nun told me that day, I just went pure hysterical, you know, and she calmed me down, and she's a wonderful girl. So that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm quite happy with the film, and you know, and I hope it does. For, as you said, there's in Ireland, that people they're not bound to tell people that go back looking for their mothers, or fathers that go back looking for their sons going back looking for their mothers. They're not bound to. They have to in England once they come to 18. But what we didn't realise was that they're not bound to tell them, so they won't tell, you know, they keep the secrets all the time. No, we don't know where they are and what they're doing. So I think this is coming out, it's bringing it out into the fore. It's really, all last week in Dublin, it was, every programme was full of it, Philomena. It's getting people to discuss it and talking about their experiences in these homes as well, you know. So it's all, a lot of them were like me, they hid it for years because we were so ashamed. So I think it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. I think the film will do. I hope it will anyway.
Bring relief to a lot of people.
I hope so. I really do hope so, you know. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Appreciate
thank you. Thank you. And he wouldn't let her. He went up and he kissed the mother. You know, sort of didn't know what was happening. Mary was going. And of course she took one look at him, the mother, bless her. And she said, oh, I just can't part them. You know, she didn't want a boy. Neither did her husband want a boy. And the 3 grown-ups, well, bigger sons of their own. Anyway, she had to phone her husband. She said, I can't go and leave him. And she took Mary, but she said, I have to phone my husband in Missouri. So I said, oh, bring them along. Bring a half a dozen if you like, he said. So anyway, Auntie went very quickly then. I've never had time to say goodbye, well, you know, so.
So how soon after Anthony was taken did you leave the church, or leave the convent?
Well, after Anthony left, he left 1 week before Christmas. I was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken, and I cried and made a nuisance of myself, really, because the nuns, and I wanted him back, and of course I couldn't have him back because I'd signed him away in the June as he went away in the December. And they said, no, you can't have him back because I said, I know I can't, but I said I didn't want him to go either, you know, because he went so suddenly, I think, you know. If I was prepared, I would have been okay. I wouldn't have been okay,
really?
But
yeah,
you know what I mean. It's sort of, I'd have been more resigned to it. But anyway, I cried and cried and cried and nearly went crazy and nearly drove the nuns mad because they said, oh, will you stop your nonsense and just get on with, you know, get on with it. But within a fortnight, they had me out of the home and back over in England in a boys' school for boys. 2 weeks later, so it was in the beginning of January '56, I ended up, and that's when I started another life again then. Anthony had gone, and I was just heartbroken, and over the kind of, as those 2 years, I stayed in that boys' school for 2 years, I thought, I'm not a Catholic anymore. I just, you know, I was so heartbroken he was gone, and I stopped going to confession, stopped going to communion, because you see, I mean, all your life, from 6 to 18, went to evening with the boy, and then we arranged to meet the following week, and I was living with my aunt. She'd taken me out of the school at 18. I was 18 at this stage, and she had taken me to the carnival that night, and then I came back, and the following week I said, well, I'm going back to meet John. We arranged to meet him the following week. A nice young man he was, and she said, oh no, you're not leaving this house. She said she wouldn't, and of course, I mean, those days you obeyed your elders, and that was it. You couldn't do any more, you know. So you're not leaving the house, she said. And I said, but I'd promised I'd meet this John. No, you're not, she said, and she locked me in. She wouldn't let me out and gave me across the face. Anyway, so I never saw him again. Never saw him again. And so I had made love that night, and over the months I hadn't realised what I'd done, to be quite honest. That's, you know. And then she noticed I was getting big, and she said, oh my God, are you pregnant? Shall I say? I didn't know what pregnant meant. You know, in those days you didn't. So, oh my God, she said, have you been with the boy? I said, yeah. I met him at the carnival, but I said, you wouldn't let me out to see him. She nearly went crazy. So she got me to see the doctor and went into this home in Rossgrey in Tipperary. And that's where it all started, you know. Anthony had a bad time having him at the time. And then you were 8 weeks in the nursing part of it, and then you had to go over to the main building. And then you got your, we all got different duties. I got the job working in the laundry for 3.5 years. And it wasn't the Magdalene laundries, nothing to do with the Magdalene laundries. It was just, we were classed as Magdalene's girls because after St. Mary Magdalene, who was a sinner, so we were the Magdalene girls. But in actual fact, we did laundry just for the home and for the nuns and the babies and ourselves. But the Magdalenes are a different story. People are beginning to get, before I married him. He was the only one that knew. I took before I married him, because I thought if he doesn't want to marry, well then he knows. And all he said, he never mentioned it. The past is past, that's it. Full stop. That was Jane's dad.
And you decided that it would be best for the family to just not have it be part of your family life?
It wasn't even that, I suppose, because when Anthony was born, I was in the convent having him. We were so indoctrinated. It was such an awful, mortal sin, the Catholic religion. You had to repent every day, you know, all the times you were there, you had to repent because you committed such an awful sin of having a baby out of wedlock. Okay? So that started. The whole story started when when I was 6 years old. My mother died in Ireland, which left my father, she was only 36, my father was 36. There were 6 of us. There was 3 boys and 3 girls. So Dad couldn't cope with all of us. So he put the 3 girls into a convent school in Limerick. So from 6 till 18, that's where I stayed. And it was nuns from that time onwards, you know, continually. Very good nuns, some of them, you know. So they gave us a very good academic education. Music and all sorts of English, Irish and all maths and what have you. But as regards social facts of life, you were never told anything about it. So.
And it would seem from the movie at least that you've kept your faith through all of this. No,
I lost it after Anthony was taken away, when Anthony was adopted. I lost it because it was kind of so sudden. I had to work there. He was born in the home, when I went to the home. And you know how I became pregnant, don't you? Yeah. Anyway,
at least Stephen Frear's version of it.
Eh?
At least Stephen Frear's version of it.
Oh God! Oh dear! Yeah.
You look beautiful.
Oh yeah. And as I say, I became pregnant, and as I say, went out one night to a carnival and met this nice boy. I had a romantic evening, and full stop. Didn't know what it was all about, of course. You didn't in those days. I mean, it's going back in the 50s. And nuns, there was no way you'd ever speak about sex. We didn't know the first thing about sex. So I don't know, mixed up, I think. Yeah, but we had nothing to do with the Magdalenes. They were different, completely different altogether.
And you were of age at that point. You were 18.
I was 18 when I left the school. 18.
And you had the child after you were 18.
Yeah.
But you ended up still caught up in all of this. You didn't have any.
Because my father. I mean, those days you couldn't dare have a baby because the shame was absolutely awful. I mean, you'd have to live through it to understand what it was like. Okay, so and my father disowned me, of course, and it was only this one other brother that was 18 months older than me that we kept in touch all the years. And there was no way I could I used to ask them, can you find me a place where I can bring the baby and work with him, take him with me? Oh, no, he's got to stay here till he's adopted. This was the nun's attitude, you see. So I worked there for 3.5 years in the laundry. And every evening we could go and play with your baby and nurse them and cuddle them and love them, you know. So, and that's life went on for the 3.5 years.
So your child was 3 years old when?
3.5 he was. Yeah, he was 3.5 years of age.
So he's a personality and a.
He was the loveliest tall boy, good-looking, dark, lovely child, and I used to cuddle and sing little Irish songs to him and all sorts of things and teach him little rhymes and what have you. And then it happened that I'd signed him. there was a lady looking for a little girl, the mother that adopted him, you know. She was looking for a little girl. She didn't want a boy because she'd already 3 boys of her own, and her husband was a doctor. They lived in Missouri. So she came over to Rossgrey in Tipperary to have a look around, and she picked out Mary. But it so happened that Anthony, my son, was always with Mary. He used to look after her and take her Mary was 3 and he was 3.5, but he was always quite a tall little fella. And they were very loving together, the two of them, you know, the two of them. And anyway, the mother came to pick Mary up one evening, and
we run these uncut, and the idea is just really to have a conversation. It's pretty low key.
Do you want to ask the questions? And is there no chance my daughter could? She can sit in, or
if you like.
She helps me. Jane, can you? He said if I like. She's the lady that started all this out.
Whatever you think works okay with me.
Jane, please.
Okay.
The story starts with your daughter, you felt?
No, my own story actually does start with her. Once I told her the story, because I kept it secret for so long, you know. Do you know the story yourself?
I do. I've seen the movie a few times.
And then once it came out, it was over to Jane, because I don't do the internet. So she took it over from there. For the last 10 years, she's really worked on it. So that's why I say she can come in if she wants to come in. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, I think you can start at the beginning. You can start when you were 6.
When I was 6,
Yeah.
right. Do you want me to start? You said I can. So she said, no, keep it short and keep it, don't bump it. So.
Well, let's assume people who are watching this have seen the story, kind of have an idea of the story. What is it that inspired you to actually tell your daughter after all those years?
It was actually, I used to go home every year, back to Ireland every year for holidays, and when I was younger and had Anthony at the time, my young brother, he was 18 months older than me, and he was the only one that knew the two of us. And over the years, he used to say, I wonder what happened to where he is, where is he gone? Is he in Vietnam? And then he said to me, went home in 2001, I think it was, will you for goodness sake go back home and tell your daughter and your son? Because I kept it so embedded in here for years and years and years. And when I went back and told her, of course, straight away, she said she had an inkling. She's seen some little photographs and things. So that's where it all started, really.
Had you told your husband?
Jane's dad I had, but he's dead. He died this year.
But had you told him before he passed?
Oh, I told him, and I